Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Burke County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. We're glad you're here. Welcome to everyone. Madam Clerk, all the commissioners are present. County Attorney, Finance Officer, and our manager. Let me ask you at this time if you have any mobile devices that may make some noise, to please take a look at those. Be sure that they are in silent mode or turned off at this time. And I would ask you tonight, as you have any items for presentation, that you come to the podium here in front, and be sure that the microphone is on so that we get recording. And then also give our clerk a moment to clean things up, sanitize between speakers at the podium. We are delighted tonight to have Pastor David Bridges with the First Apostolic Church with us for our invocation. And then following the invocation tonight, our County Attorney J.R. Simpson will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. So at this time, Pastor Bridges, if you'll come, and let's stand together for our invocation.
Let's pray. Lord Jesus, we thank you and praise you for this beautiful day that you've blessed us with. We pray, Lord, that tonight that you would have your hand upon this meeting. As our commissioners conduct business, we pray, Lord, that you would bless them in all of their efforts that they do to better our community and our county. Pray, Lord, for every speaker that you would have your hand upon them and let them speak with humility and grace tonight, God, as they bring forth whatever it is that they are presenting. God, in everything, we pray that you would receive glory and honor and praise. And it's in the mighty and wonderful name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Please join me in the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Let me also take this time for just a moment to thank you for your cooperation with the COVID operation, for wearing your mask coming and going. Please, if you leave your seat, be sure that you have your mask on. And thank you again for your cooperation. All right, gentlemen, this brings us to item 4 tonight, approval of agenda. And we have had 2 items that have come forth within the last day or two that are time sensitive in nature. And so I'm going to ask you to consider placing those items on the agenda. I'm going to take them one at a time for acceptance to go on to the agenda. And then after we know where they're going, then we will vote on the agenda as it has been presented. First item that I want to bring is an item from the Board of Elections. This item comes from them in relation to some hazard pay that they believe might be payable through COVID funds, and that has to be done before the end of the year. So if you are agreeable to hear that item tonight as a decision item, I would entertain a motion at this time to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion we amend our agenda to include the hazard pay requests for election members, director, and staff.
All right, thank you, Maynard. Gentlemen, you've heard this motion. All those in favor of adding this item to our decision agenda tonight, please let it be known by the uplifted hand. Those opposed? Did I miss? Did you vote, Mr. Carter? I didn't. Vote for? Okay, let me, we've got so many different times, and let me try that one more time. Those in favor of the motion, please signify by the uplifted hand. It's 4. Those opposed? You're opposed. 1 opposed. Okay. 4 in favor. So this item will be added to the agenda. Okay. The second item comes from Burke County Emergency Call Center. Brock gave us some information on this item at our pre-agenda meeting, and we have received in the meantime a revised quote, and this quote contains some discounts that, if we are able to act on that item tonight, would apply to the county. So, and JR, help me if I'm wrong here, we can add this item to the agenda, and then I suppose if we felt we couldn't act, we could still carry it forward to our January 5th meeting. I believe that's the correct date.
That's correct.
Where we had planned to hear this anyway. However, if we can act tonight, then there is some potential for savings. So with that explanation, I will entertain a motion to add this item to the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you've heard Commissioner Abely's motion. All those in favor of doing that signify by the uplifted hand, please. And that is 5-0. So this item will be added to the agenda. With these two additions, gentlemen, you've had the agenda in front of you. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion, we approve the agenda as amended with the two new items.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. All those in favor, please signify by the uplifted hand. And that will be 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, that will bring us to approval of meeting minutes. Gentlemen, you've had these minutes for October 6, 2020 pre-agenda meeting and October 20th, 2020 regular meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve these meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed those two meetings and found no irregularities, so I make the motion be approved as rendered.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Here and now, that's 5-0, Madam Clerk. All right, this brings us to presentations tonight, and we have one presentation from our Animal Services, Pet of the Month. This will be presented by Caitlin. Is that you under that mask?
That is me. It's
Okay.
Caitlin. I'm back.
I didn't get a chance to speak to you ahead of time, and so thank you for being here, and we'll hear the presentation.
All right, sounds good. So we are back with our Pets of the Month, and this month I have a very funny story. Our dog for the Pet of the Month was Mr. Ted. So I was getting him ready to go. I'll talk about Pharrell here in just a second. I was getting him ready to go this afternoon to come down here. We had him out. We were getting a little harness on him, putting a sweater on him, and this family comes in to look at cats. And of course, we have Ted up front, and they immediately spot him. They start loving on him, and I was like, okay, well, I've got to head up to the commissioner's meeting. I'm going to leave him here and see what happens. I just got a text message on the way up here that he got adopted. So Mr. Ted, thanks to this meeting, once again, has been adopted. If we didn't have him out getting him ready to go, that family probably never would have spotted him. So he got adopted, so that's great news. So we'll just kind of go over our Cat of the Month with this. This is Mr. Pharrell. So Pharrell is the most handsome Black Panther cat you will ever meet. He is huge. He's probably about 15, 16 pounds, and he could probably stay in the game 3 or 4 more pounds. So this cat came to us. His name is Pharrell because when he came in, we thought he was feral. This cat was so mean, we could not touch him. He was hissing at us, spatting at us. Eventually, we won him over, and now he will jump up on you and give you a big bear hug every morning that you go in there. So this guy is ready to find his forever home. He's been with us about 2 months now. But he is an absolute sweet cat. He would be happy being an indoor cat or an outdoor cat. So if you or anybody you know is interested in adopting Mr. Pharrell, please come and see us. We are overloaded with tons of cats and kittens still, even into December. We are running a special event thanks to our county manager to try and get some of these guys into loving homes. So all of our cats and kittens, the adoption fee is $45, and that covers all their vaccinations. That's Mr. Ted. He just got adopted this afternoon, so that's very exciting for him. He's been with us a while, too. So we are running Whiskers in Wonderland. So this is our little adoption event for Christmas. Our cats and kittens, like I said, are $45. That covers their spay or neuter, core vaccinations, deworming and flea control. So these guys are ready to go. And if anybody is interested in adopting our dogs, cats, we're always looking for adopters, fosters to help us out during the holiday season. So that is all I have.
All right, well, thank you, Caitlin. Gentlemen, any questions for Caitlin?
Caitlin, just for public knowledge, how many dogs and cats are available right now?
Right now, we have about 7 dogs available for adoption, and cats we have close to 65 between our shelter and our foster homes. We try to keep our Facebook updated as much as possible, so if you see anybody on our Facebook page, let us know.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions? All right, thank you, Caitlin. Certainly a Christmas miracle for Ted, and maybe Farrell will fare as well. All right, this brings us to item number 7, scheduled public hearings. This item comes from Community Development Zoning Map Amendment ZMA 2020-04, and public hearing presented by Scott Carpenter, our Deputy County Manager, Planning Director. Evening, Scott.
Good evening, gentlemen, and Merry Christmas to everyone.
Thank you.
I have one item. Staff has received a rezoning application from Lacey and Ashley Williams to rezone a parcel of land that totals 9.8 acres. The property is owned by WITH-AWD LLC. The request is to rezone the vacant property from its current zoning of R3 residential to the industrial zoning district. The applicant would like to establish a contractor's office and storage yard at this location for their existing asphalt striping business, Hickory Sealing and Striping. The applicant has owned and operated the asphalt striping business for the past 14 years. Over the years, the business has done quite well, and the applicants are now needing to expand their current operation. The subject parcel is currently vacant. The applicants propose to construct a large metal structure on the property that will house several offices and a truck equipment repair garage. The company's equipment and vehicles will also be stored on the site. The parcel is vacant and it has no 911 address at this time. The parcel is located within a Water Supply 4 PA Water Supply watershed. Records indicate that the property can be served by public water and a private on-site septic system. The subject parcel has approximately 800 linear feet of frontage on Roadhiss Road. As far as what's going on in the surrounding area, the predominant zoning of the area is R3. The adjoining parcel to the east is also zoned industrial and is owned by Burke County. The county property has an existing convenient site for residential refuse disposal. The Briarwood subdivision is just across the Roadhiss Road, and you can see it there in yellow with the circles on the existing land use map. And to the north is a 131-acre wooded parcel that belongs to Duke Energy, and it is currently vacant. As far as conformity goes with the comprehensive plan, the current land use plan for Burke County is the 2016-2030 Blueprint Burke Strategic Land Use Plan. The subject parcel is located in the secondary growth area. The secondary growth area have many of the same attributes as a primary growth area, such as infrastructure, utilities, and transportation corridors that are well developed. One of the fundamental policies of the land use plan is to allow and promote multiple types of economic development opportunities. These opportunities include commercial, institutional, and industrial development and can be expected in these areas as needed to support other uses within this area. This area does have multiple uses, currently, and a lot of those uses are residential and single family, as well as a little bit of industrial and agriculture, which is pretty typical of a whole lot of the outlying areas in Burke County. As far as conformity with the Burke County zoning ordinance goes, as stated earlier, the current zoning for this parcel is R3, as is most other parcels in this community. The current zoning map shows the zoning for the subject parcel and the surrounding areas. The subject parcel's frontage on State Road 1611, which is a major collector, and its close proximity to existing industrial zoning allows for consideration of this rezoning request. The Planning Board met on October 22nd, 2020, and they voted unanimously to recommend approval of this item to this board. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have concerning this rezoning.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Gentlemen, you've heard this information. Before I open the public hearing, do we have any questions from the commissioners to Scott on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one. Scott, we voiced most of our questions and concern at the pre-agenda, but I did want to ask, did you have any comments, positive or negative, since the pre-agenda on this item?
I have received no comments, sir.
No comment, okay. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Scott? Hearing none, at this time I'll open the public hearing and ask, is there anyone here tonight to speak on this item? Seeing and hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing at this time and entertain a motion to adopt an ordinance number 2020-07, amending the official Burke County zoning map.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to adopt an ordinance number 2020-07, amending the official Burke County zoning map as it relates to CMA 2020-04.
All right, Commissioner Taylor, you want to read the rest of that, or?
Was there more of it?
Yeah, that consistency statement and
Adopt,
rationale.
okay, hold on. It split the page on me. Number 4, adopt the following zoning consistency statement and rationale for decision. Consistency statement: the proposed zoning reclassification is consistent with the purposes, goals, objectives, and policies of the adopted land use plan and other plans for the physical development of the county as adopted by the Board of Commissioners. Rationale for decision: the subject property is adjacent to existing industrial district. The proposed use of contractor office and storage yards should not have an adverse effect on the character of the surrounding residential area. The property is located on a minor arterial road.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Gentlemen, you've heard this motion by Commissioner Taylor. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand, please. Madam Clerk, that's 5-0. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Jim.
This brings us to item number 8, informal public comments. Madam Clerk, do we have any comments tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have Miss Kathleen Atkins. If you'll give me just a second to clean the podium.
All right, thank you.
It's already on.
Okay, Ms. Atkins, if you'll state your name and your address, please.
Yes, my name is Kathleen Atkins, and my address is 1491 McGee Street here in Morganton.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to address this board regarding the building at 3021 A.B. Perkins Avenue. This topic is number 10, items of discussion on the agenda this evening. I lived 2 houses down from this property since 1988, and over the years, the property has become an eyesore in our neighborhood. It has become unsafe, a liability, and brings the value of our surrounding property down. Why would anyone want to buy in the neighborhood that it is the first building you see when you turn into our road? After much consideration, I filed the complaint with the county back in the spring of 2020 to hopefully motivate this owner to take responsibility for his property. To no avail, after months of trying to communicate with this individual owner, we are here today to review this bad situation in hopes to rid the unsightly, unkept building on this property. No one wishes to demolish one's building or property, but the owner of this property has shown no interest and has treated our community with disrespect. I ask that this board consider removing the remnants of this building in hopes to improve this property by making it safer and more pleasing visibly to all who drives past it each day, and for those who live next door or across the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Atkins. Do we have any other public comments?
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any others in the audience? All right, thank you. All right, this brings us to our consent items, and just before we go there, gentlemen, one of the items, in fact, the first item in the consent is commission appointments. We spoke briefly about this at our meeting. Commissioner Taylor, did you discern whether or not that air pollution group continues to meet, or?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I was going to handle that with the motion, but I did find out late today, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, that as we had said earlier, that the item of water, I was trying to find it on my computer. I shouldn't do two things at one time, should I? So, but anyhow, for clean water and clean air, that committee is dissolving. They told me today, Taylor Dellinger, that would be taken off, and that we did not need to assign anyone to those committees. So the motion, well, you may have more discussion, so we'll wait on that. But the request is to remove those two items from the Commissioners' Board's appointees.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Gentlemen, were there any other items on these appointments that you wanted to discuss? Commissioner Taylor, in thinking that might happen, I wanted to ask, and I meant to call you earlier, I apologize. Would you have any interest in the EMS Quality Management Committee? That committee meets at 9:30 once a quarter. That's a committee that I've been on for some time. I'd be certainly delighted if you are interested in doing that, and we can talk later if you don't want to tell me right now.
Well, the Uniform Air Quality Oversight and the Air Quality Committee, I told him today, he said, "You should be happy you'll be on one less board." You know what my response was?
What?
They'll probably assign me to another one. We'll talk about that, but yeah, I don't mind doing it. I mean, it's just.
Okay, all right. Well, Madam Clerk, we'll remove me and put Commissioner Taylor there. If that becomes a problem, we'll deal with that later. Okay, any other discussion on the appointments? Okay, all right. With that change then, Madam Clerk, we'll make those notes, and at this time, Brian, I'll ask you to proceed with the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, you have 13 items on your consent agenda. Number 1, BOC 2021 Commission Appointments. Number 2, BOC, the NCACC Legislative Goals Voting Delegate. Item 3, BOC, Adoption of Rules of Procedure for 2021. Item 4, Clerk, Resolution Establishing the BOC 2021 Meeting Schedule Revised. Item 5, Clerk, Approval of Extract of Minutes for Closeout of CDBG Waterline Project. Item number 6, Reappointment and Removal Blue Ridge Community Action. Item 7, Reappointments to Tourism Development Authority. Item 8, Clerk, Reappointments to the Rutherford College Planning Board and Board of Adjustment, ETJ. Item 9, Finance, Resolution Designating Deputy Finance Officers. Item 10, JCPC, Approval of Changes to JCPC Bylaws. Item 11, Sheriff Jail Medical Services Contract. Item 12, Tax Department Tax Collection Report for November 2020. And item 13, Tax Department Release Refund Report for November 2020. That concludes your consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. Gentlemen, you've heard the consent agenda with the amendment to item number 1. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion we approve all 13 items as rendered with the changes.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. All right, gentlemen, those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. I believe that's all of us, Madam Clerk. This brings us to item 10, which is items for decision. We'll hear the first item as was on the agenda originally, from Community Development, Abatement, and Demolition Order 3021, A.B. Perkins Avenue. This will be presented by Bradley Kirkley, our zoning administrator. Good evening, Bradley.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak and present this item to you this evening. I come to you on behalf of code enforcement as well as Burke County building inspections. The item before you, 3021 A.B. Perkins Avenue. It's a little under a quarter-acre tract. If you're not familiar with Perkins Avenue, is located. It's up off of 181, just north of Oak Hill Elementary School. The property in question is a duplex, hence A and B. It was condemned by Steve Holden of Burke County Building Inspections, and that was done in October of 2019. Within that, the office and the department followed suit with General Statute 153A 371, and that would be the process of condemnation of this structure. Several photos are on the screen as the progression of when the original complaint was filed to our office, leading through the condemnation to currently today. I visited the property yesterday. It looks in very similar fashion to what you see on the screen here, so no new updated photos were provided. To basically give you a rundown, the property was condemned. It was ordered to be demolished, or with the option of the property owner pulling permits and providing an engineered letter for the repair and reconstruction of it to make it into a livable dwelling or rental unit. At this time, none of that has been followed or done. Within the same general statute guideline, the property owner has the right to an appeal. He could have filed that within 10 days of the original hearing. No such appeal was filed. As such, due diligence and time restraints have ran its course. Beyond having minor work done to the yard and mowing capacity, no real work has been done to the exterior or interior of the unit. No permits have been obtained from zoning, building inspections, no engineered letter has been provided. In advance of tonight's meeting and in advance of pre-agenda, I searched to turn and have a rough estimate provided there to it. Within the packet and information, I submitted a $20,000 as an approximate cost for demolition. The rough estimate came back at $12,500. Once again, if it's approved by the board for removal, abatement, or demolition, we would seek a qualified bid, advertise there for that, and do our due diligence to get our lowest cost. Since pre-agenda, it's worth noting that the property owner is delinquent on taxes. Danny provided some updated information after pre-agenda. So those are 2 years worth that have an outstanding balance of $606.99, as well as $572.68. I do not know the procedure on moving forward with foreclosure or auctioning the property at that point. That would be a tax call on when it reaches that point. But for tonight, it would strictly be for the board to grant staff the allowance to move forward with demolition of the structure. It is worth noting also that the structure is brick, so I would think that's the primary cause for the cost being at $12,500 roughly. If it were a wood structure, that cost would be much less than that. I'll be happy to entertain any questions that you may have in regards to the property or the item.
All right, thank you, Bradley. Gentlemen, you've heard this information from our zoning administrator. Any questions to Bradley?
Mr. Chairman, I have several points. I don't know if you could show that house for a second on the board, and just wanted to make a couple of comments. And I understand your work and your procedure and what you're trying to do and all that good stuff. But the point I wanted to make, and I did call JR, and I asked these questions, and just so you'll know, you know, that it's a, I don't know if you'd say it's a quality brick house, but it's a brick house. And it looks like, you know, anybody who would own that property even if they didn't need it to live in, they would keep it up and rent it. And I don't know what the rent would bring for that house, but I'm guessing somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000 for that area. It would be a good price. And I think what's bothered me a little bit on this is the fact that if you're on that property, it appears that we would keep it up and keep it fixed up. So evidently there's something wrong with the house is what I'm getting to. And it can't be, maybe it can't be fixed or whatever. It's in the Quaker Meadows Township. I checked the tax record and I was a little surprised that it was only valued at $58,900. And I wondered why that was that way. And I think the JR can respond to what I asked him. I said, is there another way we can accomplish what we need to accomplish without, demolishing somebody's house or property? And I don't know if this guy's sick. I don't know if he's just uninterested. Of course, you told me that, just said that he has not responded to anything that we have, through our departments, have done to do it. But I would, I think it's, I think we got neighbors and so many people saying that if he can't do nothing, you do something. So they're asking us as a board to do anything. But I would strongly, before I say that though, JR, you want to respond? You told me one thing. The only other thing this board could do would be what?
Well, at this point, because of the recalcitrance of the landowner, the court can either go ahead with demolition of the building, or the court can file, the county can file a lawsuit against Mr. Byrd demanding that he clean up the property and that he rebuild the property so that it's not it's not a nuisance anymore. But if he hasn't responded to those things, he may not respond to that either. Basically, what that does is that gets you into a court order telling him to clean up the property, and if he doesn't abide by the court order, then the court could hold him in contempt and he could do a little jail, or the court could give the county permission at that point to go ahead and demolish the building.
So from looking from the outside, the building looks redeemable. I do know the kinky windows and the cheap outside doors. I do notice that. And the only question I have, gentlemen, I agree that it has been pushed to us for a decision. But I would like to suggest that we take a vote to demolish it, but we give him one final 30 days if he don't begin to make improvements. And I think, JR, in doing that we have been gracious in extending 30 days to either get it done or the county is going to demolish it. And I would be happy with that. I think he should do something with his house.
Well, if you look at the order, it was entered in October of 2019. So he has had a while now. But the court, the county is able to do whatever it wants. If you want to give him that much time, that's fine. Once they had the hearing, it was incumbent upon the county staff to issue an order within 60 days, and they did that. And they issued the order as an either-or. They gave him, they told him it was going to be demolished or it was going to be improved by him, and gave him that choice. So that's it.
To touch on what council said and just to elaborate on that, for that hearing itself, we did give them the option, and it's based primarily on the outward view of what the structure would be. From a building inspector side of things, I've seen structures in far worse shape than that. Yet at the same time, the nuisance, which was touched on during public comment, is more so of the cause of concern. It is a structure in a house that you drive by as you come and go from the neighborhood. It is something everyone would turn and see. Within that photo right there, that is the only work or due diligence that he followed up of any kind to there. You know, we have another individual who's present, who is in attendance here tonight, who's reached out to this individual to buy the property, to buy it, to make use thereof it, to either flip it into something that's rental, demolish it himself, make use for his own, just so he didn't have to turn and look at it. Wouldn't turn and sell, wouldn't entertain the idea of it. So it is something. Now, I cannot vouch to sit and tell you that there may not even be a floor if you made it inside. I don't know, haven't been inside of the unit. But we did give that flexibility of one of the two, simply so if someone wanted to retain it, they had an option. Had that time stamp of 60 days not been something that he could have followed, that individual could have did the appeal, which ultimately would have put him before you in the same manner that I am right now, back in 2019, to ask for more time or added assistance or other options that could have been discussed. But because he did not follow up on any of that, we are now at this conundrum that we have.
Well, I don't think in today's, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I don't think in today's world and our codes, Scott, you could answer that question. I don't think it's quite a half-acre lot, so it wouldn't even meet the code to build that house on that lot today.
To answer that one, and through Scott, from a zoning perspective, it would be a legal lot of record. We, through zoning, cannot deem a property unbuildable. However, fitting something back with a septic, meeting setbacks, right-of-ways, it would be very constrained. But we would not say someone's property is unusable.
Well, I think, you know, it's unnatural to own a piece of property and not want to take care of it. It's unnatural to have a means to help your family's income, not to take advantage of that property. And it's unnatural not to respond and answer you people on a, you know, normal, average basis. So somewhere the interest to the building has been lost, evidently, and evidently he doesn't have children, or does he?
Yeah.
You know?
Don't know.
So,
All right. Any other questions, comments on this item? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to uphold the condemnation ruling for the abandoned dwelling duplex and authorize up to $20,000 of fund balance from the general fund for code enforcement to remove the violations and nuisances from the property located at 3021 A.B. Perkins Avenue, PIN number 17758562881. Further authorize the county manager to execute the demolition contract on behalf of the board, subject to review and/or revision by the county attorney. Any direct cost via cleanup, demolition, or removal will be placed within a property lien by the county attorney and recorded with the Register of Deeds office.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that's 5-0.
Thank you,
Thank you, Bradley. All right, gentlemen, at this time, we'll hear the request from the Board of Elections for hazard pay requests for election members, director, and staff. This will be presented by Debbie Mace, our elections director, and/or Mr. Kirksey, Board of Election Chairman.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Unless Mr. Kirksey, Chairman Kirksey has something to say, I'm lost for words.
All right.
I'll be glad to take any questions, but Mr. Kirksey may want to speak.
All right, Mr. Kirksey?
Just to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a happy and prosperous New Year.
All right, thank you. Gentlemen, we don't have a lot of information in front of us. I know our county manager and finance officer, I think, tried to gain some information about this item. They sent it via email. Hopefully you've had a chance to see some of that. Mr. Manager or Margaret, you, either one of you want to try to give us some information on this item?
I was trying to see, is he motioning at me? Okay.
Yeah, he's
sorry.
definitely pointing at you,
He's
Margaret.
pointing at me. Sorry, I could not see that he was. We received this request yesterday via interoffice mail to our accounts payable clerk, and Debbie and I had spoken about it before a couple times that it might be coming, and I had mentioned to her that it needed to come to the board for approval, and brought it to the county manager yesterday so that we could attempt to address it in the time fashion. These funds came through the CARES Act, through a legislative act, and in our research on CARES Act funding, there are some very specific things if you want to utilize it for staff payment, and we've included the documentation for your review that in order to do any type of hazard pay, it would need to meet certain guidelines. We reached out to the North Carolina Pro Office, which is Pandemic Recovery Office. They are working through the state office, auditor's office, and budget office to ensure that we have the most accurate information and best guidance in what is eligible and not eligible within these funds, and they responded that they did not feel this would meet the eligibility requirement for the CARES Act funding. I reached out to the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, contact who's been working with us also on these funds. They were not able to determine that they would be eligible. So the concern is that these won't be eligible this wouldn't be an eligible use of the funds, although we certainly know what a hard job and how much they had to do through the election. The concern is that these aren't eligible use of the dollars, and it would ultimately be a county expense.
All right, thank you, Margaret. Gentlemen, you do have in front of you some written documentation on this item. Margaret, I think, has explained that concern that she has, and I would also remind you that we'll be considering in January hazard pay in the form of a bonus for everyone, which would include the employees at the Board of Elections. I am correct about that, right, Margaret?
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Manager, you want to make any other comments before we consider this item further?
Yes, gentlemen, again, we've researched it as best we could with authoritative sources, and we do not believe that it would be consistent with the restrictions for the COVID relief fund monies. And the 1% that we're talking about for all county employees would be county dollars and not have to adhere to the restrictions of the federal funds. So I just want to make sure there's not any confusion about that. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Brian. Gentlemen, any questions for staff or for Debbie or Mr. Kirksey?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I speak?
Sure.
This afternoon, and it was fairly late, I'm not sure, let's see, this says 3:09 this afternoon. I received an email from Kelly Torno, which is one of our legal counsel at the State Board of Elections. It was sent to me and she asked me to forward her, give her the email of our county attorney. So the things that JR and I have been discussing, not about this, but other items, he had me to send it to his law firm. Is that right, JR? Is that where? So this attorney at the state board asked me to forward it to him. I did not make copies because I just thought maybe you got a copy, you know, in the shuffle. But it speaks pretty directly from the state board and their legal counsel. I can forward you a copy, or JR can forward you a copy, but it speaks pretty straightforward that this is indeed a CARES Act item. So.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. JR, can you respond to that?
I have not seen an email from the State Board of Elections. I'm looking through that now because I was working on other projects this afternoon.
Would have been there about 3:15, so that's pretty late. I agree. I have a copy if that will do you any good.
You have a physical copy with you there?
I do.
Give that to JR if you would.
I did receive that. I received it at 3:09.
Okay. Gentlemen, are you agreeable to kind of recess this item for just a moment, let JR look at that and bring our next item, and we'll come back to this in just a minute after he has a moment to, okay, all right. Y'all just at ease for just.
Would you like this copy? No?
No, we'll
Okay.
let JR respond
right.
here when he gets a chance to peruse that. Just at ease for a minute, and thank you, and we will take up the next item. Burke County Emergency Communications Center CAD RMS JMS purchase request, and this comes from our Director Brock Hall. Brock?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak about this request again. I know we talked about it quite a bit during pre-agenda. We do have a little bit more information to give to you tonight. Just to recap a bit, we discussed the need for this project. The CAD, RMS, and JMS provider that we currently have is essentially discontinued our current product. We have about 2 years till January 2023 until that product is virtually unusable anymore. So we have a timeline to get a new solution in place. We started looking at some options last year, about 12 months ago, last fall. We spoke to several vendors. We went to some vendor shows. We selected a few vendors, and we provided them with documentation of our current contract to get some pricing from them. We contacted 5 vendors directly. One of those was Southern Software, one was Caliber Public Safety, one was Motorola, one was Central Square, which is our current vendor, and one was a company called Rapid Deploy. Rapid Deploy kind of priced themselves out of consideration, that and the fact that they don't have an RMS JMS option. Central Square did not respond to our requests, which was no heartburn for us because the type of support we're getting from them currently, we really weren't that excited about hearing what their new product was going to be. Southern Software and Caliber Public Safety both came in the $600,000 to $700,000 range. Motorola came in and in the $900,000 range, $913,813. All the departments that were involved in this decision. So Morgan and Public Safety, Valdez Police, Valdez Fire, Drexel Police Department, Emergency Management, EMS, us. We're all consulted, and it was a unanimous decision. We all felt that Motorola was the best product for us. There was some question as far as the pricing was concerned. They did advise that there were some incentives tied to this calendar year. If the item was to be tabled to the January 5th meeting, there was going to be a pricing change. Since pre-agenda, they have extended some of the incentives that they gave us. So it's not going to be as drastic a change as we were concerned about. It is going to be closer to $200,000 more expensive if we wait till the January 5 meeting. If we were fortunate enough to get approval tonight, that would be the price difference. And that would be mainly in the maintenance and the extended maintenance and support for that. The request before you, the contract before you includes the initial purchase, 913-813, which is billed up front in milestone payments as the project progresses, and it can be tailored to our needs as a county to fit with fiscal year or whatever we need. And then it also locks in our maintenance rates for the first 5 years after go live, which is going to extend it out to about 7 years, altogether. And that's where we're really going to see some cost savings in locking in those maintenance costs. That's the request that we have before you today. It's also important to note that the cities and towns have allocated their funds for this. Should we go into the new year, it's going to affect their pricing as well. Their pricing is going to go up. So our pricing would go up, close to that $200,000 mark. Theirs would be proportionately less based on their costs, but they would see a difference as well. So that's the time-sensitive nature of this request, why we asked to bring it before the board. Now, should you choose to, make a decision on it, we ask that you give the county manager the authority to execute the contract and negotiate the final price pending approval from the county attorney. Obviously, a portion of this would be 911 eligible. We anticipate upwards to $290,000 of the cost will be 911 eligible, and the remaining would be, you're looking at about $625,000 as a fund balance appropriation. So I will take whatever questions you have for me.
All right, thank you, Brock. Gentlemen, any questions for Brock on this matter?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
what percentage of the cost of the 600-some thousand is being paid by the municipalities?
That is our cost. That $625 is our cost. They have their own
cost.
contract and their own cost.
What is their cost, do you know?
I could look it up. I want to say Morganton is in the $250,000 to $180,000 range.
So they're subject to getting the good price also before January the 5th, but it's dependent upon us voting tonight.
It all hinges on, because since we're kind of we're the lead
Kinda, or
agency.
are we?
We are.
Okay.
We are the lead agency, so it's contingent on approval from us. They got approval on their end, contingent on approval from us. So yeah, if it goes into January, they're going to pay more as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, one question for Brock. So that $200,000, which is substantial savings, but doing what we're going to do anyway, by doing it now. Now that $200,000, you said it's on maintenance cost, and I guess that's stretched over the 5-year period.
Yes, sir. Essentially, that is one incentive tied to this calendar year. They could not extend it past December 31st. So that will come into play when we eventually start paying for maintenance.
$40,000 a year for 5 years. So okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, one more. What kind of guarantees have we got from Motorola?
They have given us essentially full confidence that they're going to follow through with the pricing, follow through with their maintenance. Motorola's been a vendor of the counties for many, many years already. They're a trusted vendor. We don't have any anticipation that Motorola will go out of business. Public safety is kind of their game.
Is anybody else using the system that we want to purchase?
Yes, sir. North Carolina Highway Patrol just contracted with them. North Carolina Department of Public Safety Corrections contracted with them. Davidson County just contracted with them. Randolph County has been on the system for quite some time.
That's good. Thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, when Brian called me this afternoon and discussing this, and my understanding is we were going to do this on the 5th, And the biggest reason to add it to your agenda today was that it was not only going to enhance the money that Burke County could make, it would also enhance the municipalities, the Morgan and the others. So we're gonna have to have the contract anyhow, so I don't see any reason not to go ahead with the decision to say yes tonight and take advantage of the extra dollars that both the county and municipalities would get.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Other questions, comments for Brock? Just one question from Margaret. Margaret, do we have any kind of estimated schedule of when will this, do you think much of this payments come into the 2021 timeframe?
We won't know until we sit down with them and go over the scope of work and the schedule. The biggest piece is being the conversion, and that's going to take a significant amount of time. We would need to appropriate the full amount in order to sign the contract and execute it, but I'm not sure cash flow wise when it would be. It just varies. I know there's a portion due with signing the contract, I believe 20%. That's right.
Yeah, I believe that's right. And Motorola has said they will be flexible on the milestone payments, however we need to, work it out. You're looking at about an 18-month implementation time if we get going now. So a good portion of that will fall into subsequent fiscal years.
Okay. Other questions, comments? All right, here now, I'll entertain a motion for this item.
Chairman, I make a motion that we approve.
It's on this.
Yeah, to approve the public safety system contract between Motorola and the County of Burke for a Flex Computer 80 dispatch and record system and service agreement as presented. Authorize the county manager to negotiate and execute the agreement on the behalf of the board, subject to review and/or revision by the county attorney to determine final scope or needs of the contract. Appropriate $625,000 of general fund balance, and up to $290,000 of the 9/11 fund balance.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Gentlemen, you've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that's 5-0. Thank you, Brock.
Thank you, sir. All
right, gentlemen, we'll now go back to item number 2, and Debbie and Mr. Kirksey. And we'll recognize JR to see if he has any thoughts or opinions on his reading.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question before we get Jar's opinion?
Yes, sir.
I want to direct this to either LH or Debbie, either one. I read with interest that you met on December the 8th, 2020, and that you voted unanimously to entertain this pay. Why did you meet on December the 8th to do this? Who prompted this meeting?
This was our regular monthly meeting, and
Okay.
when they met and finished the meeting. That was also was a recount
Okay.
involved with that.
So how did this come up?
They asked to go into.
Who was they?
The board.
Okay.
Said, he made a motion to go in, to go into closed session, and I left the meeting because I made the comment to the board, I did not think it was fair for me to stay in there knowing what they were going to talk about. They didn't give any amounts to me. They didn't tell me anything because I did not want to know. That is totally my board's decision. And so I left the meeting. They went into closed session. They came back in, went back into,
Okay, move over. LH, come on up here. Seems like you're the one that did that in some kind of a meeting. So how did you find out there was monies, or did you know there was monies to be given?
We were told by the State Board of Elections.
State board, you were told what?
Told that there would be CARES money for hazard pay.
Okay.
And for the poll workers, people that worked early voting, election day, and the director, staff, and the board members.
Did they send you documentation telling you how much money was available and how you should divide it?
They sent documentation how much CARES money was available and HAVA money.
Okay.
Just figures, not how to appropriate it or anything.
Okay. So that was the preemptor as to why you did this, because the State Board of Elections said, did they tell you if you didn't use it, you were going to lose it?
No,
Okay,
they did. They did tell us.
okay,
Oh, that's December 31st, I believe.
okay.
And Johnny, they did send a chart that showed the breakdown of what each type of fund could be used for.
Okay, so that was what precipitated this whole
Correct.
discussion, was the State Board of Elections. That's all I needed to know.
And they sent the chart, and we read it, that set the stage.
That's my question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, question or two, if y'all voted on it December 8th, we're getting it information December 14th.
Right.
And it's not really fair to the board, I don't know how much time we've had to really analyze this, because we're getting conflicting reports. I believe what you're saying, obviously, LH, y'all do a great job, by the way, but we gotta go on facts, and something I'm looking at here says, on September 2nd, the Treasury provided additional guidance that hazard pay specifically may only be covered to the extent it is related to COVID-19. Across the board, hazard pay, even for substantially dedicated employees, is not eligible, regardless of whether the employee is substantially dedicated. So,
May I speak? Please. The reason you're not getting all this information till now, the email that JR has looked over, we didn't receive it till today. There were counties just like y'all that questioned this. So the state met with the School of Government, and I'm not sure who else, they didn't tell me, but they met, they came out of there sometime after lunch. That email was prompted as a result of that meeting with the School of Government and whoever else they met with. They didn't tell me, but they sent the email out, and it's pretty, well, JR can speak to that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, before JR speaks to that, and that's the attorney for the North Carolina State Board of Elections that the email is from,
Yes, sir.
we got an email from the director, the executive director of the North Carolina State Board of Elections, who pretty much indicates that this is not payable. So I don't know what this attorney is going to say, but I'm looking at the director saying that it's probably not payable. But I want everybody to know that we got that letter from Karen Bales saying that before I hear what he says on that one. So that's where I want to stop at right now, Mr. Chairman, and then go on with JR's.
All right, thank you. JR?
I just forwarded that email to all of y'all whose addresses I have, and I don't know how long it'll take to get there. Like I say, my experience with the CARES Act goes back to this afternoon. The State Board Legal Counsel's position is that a county government does not have the legal authority to prevent county boards of education from receiving or using CARES Act funding in accordance with federal and state law. Well, I think everybody could probably agree on that, except we need to know a little bit more about federal and state law. That's where I need to do some research before I give you an opinion on whether I think these funds are payable or not. She goes on to cite Graham County Board of Education versus Board of Commissioners of Graham County, which is sort of the standard attempt of the Court of Appeals to explain what counties do and what counties don't do when it comes to the Board of Election. She states that the County Board of Elections' authority over CARES Act funding is even more clear in this situation where, and she underlines this, no county money is being appropriated and the use of funds in no way impact the county government's budget. I take it from the memo that was sent out that, that a payout of $10,500 would require the county to, find $1,500 for the mandated taxes and benefits. I can't give you an opinion at this time off the top of my head. That wouldn't be fair to y'all. I do need some time to do a little research into it, and I could send you something by tomorrow sometime.
So, Margaret, maybe you can answer this question. Are CARES Act monies not allowed to pay benefits and other things? Could that, if we were to go here, could the CARES money not cover all the requirements?
It could, but I asked that question of Debbie yesterday, and she said she did not believe these funds would cover that.
I did say I'm not sure though, Margaret.
Right.
Okay. Other questions or comments on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, let me, I was having difficulty hearing what Johnny said, but anyhow, I just want to see if I can simplify this, at least make sure that I understand what this is saying to me, and is basically somebody wants to give you a total of $10,500 for you to get a bonus or pay for dangerous work or hazard work. And what you're really asking for is $1,500 to cover the taxes should you get that money. Is that correct?
I knew nothing about the benefit package till Margaret mentioned it to me. If that's covered.
Pull your mask down, please.
If that's covered or not, I have no idea. But it appears to me what Jeff just said, looks like the CARES money would cover that $1,500 and whatever it was. I mean, I can't imagine that not being included in that, but I'm not an attorney and I don't know. And to answer something that Johnny said, Karen Bell is our executive director, but when she was, she had lots of calls, I don't know how many, but lots of calls from people asking questions that were legal questions, and she would not really answer them. She referred all the counties to the attorney, which is Kelly Torno. And Kelly was 99.9% sure, but they wanted to meet. She and Karen met with the School of Government and whoever else to get the answers because Karen didn't want to make a legal statement that she didn't know for sure.
I'm not.
I know.
I still don't think you answered my question. My
Okay.
question is basically a firm, and it tells who it is in here. But anyhow, somebody wants to award y'all some money for working hazardous for COVID, I'm assuming. But the only amount of money you're requesting from us, if it happens, is the $1,500 to do the payroll tax. Is that correct?
What we're asking y'all to do is what was in the letter from the board, from my board. We're asking you to take care of those from the CARES funds. Now, if this benefit turns up and it needs to come out of somewhere, then it should come out of CARES as well. It will be the total package. We're not really asking you for any money. Because that question, or that $1,500 and whatever, that's still up in the air. We don't even know if we are going to have to, we might have to come back and ask you for that. I don't know.
You're not asking for any money, just permission to receive the money?
I'm asking permission to use the CARES money that was set aside for this purpose through the state grants and federal grants.
Well,
It does not affect the budget for the county and should not.
Mr. Chairman, I want to deviate just a second because it's such an opportunist time. I want to take this opportunity to tell you that on Election Day, I visited 7 polling places, and your employees, your workers, it was like clockwork. Somebody had greased and oiled it 3 or 4 times. It was really clicking. I commend you for that. I have no problem allowing somebody to give you the money. I think it's Christmas, and you all can probably use the money to buy Christmas presents, so.
Well, Mr. Taylor, I think it's appropriate time to let this be known. We have emails from other counties, a lot smaller counties than we are, and their boards went way, way above what ours did. We were not trying to gouge. We were not trying to be mean. We just simply voted that this amount of money, you know.
Well, see, the reason I'm asking those questions is we don't need to get involved because it's not overtime pay.
Right.
You know, it is hazard pay paid by whoever. So, you know, if we need to approve it is the only reason to prove that you can receive that money. I don't know, Margaret, will that, you may increase your taxes you got to pay out of your next paycheck, I don't know. But it seems like the request is fair enough. As long as, you know, there's always a question before the question. And anytime I pick up something, the first question I ask is not, is this honest? Is this fair? It's honest. It's simply, where's the money? Who's paying the money? And if we have to raise taxes to pay this bill, I'm not interested. But if they're paying you for having hazard work conditions, doesn't cost the county anything, that's fine with me. I don't see any reason not to approve it.
You would not see me standing here if this had to come out of the county's budget.
I think if I can just clarify, the concern, Commissioner Taylor, is these are federal dollars. And the concern is if we pay them out of the federal money and then they say, whoops, this is not legitimate, you can't use that money for this, then I think the county is going to be on the hook. Is that what I'm?
Yes, sir.
That's correct.
Well, would we not get that money before we wrote that money?
Well, we have the CARES money. It's sitting here, but we're responsible to be sure it's spent according to the federal guidelines.
Okay.
And so the concern is, you know, everything our staff is seeing, federal guidelines say it can't be used for this. But State Board of Elections obviously thinks otherwise. So I guess, you know, the quandary that this board is in, do we take that risk? You know, I think.
Well, I think this board should look at Margaret and say, Margaret, with your expertise, can you not get a yes or no from somebody? And if not, you know, we pass provided that it is determined or found out or legitimized that the funds are there.
Margaret?
Mr. Taylor, the answer from the North Carolina Pandemic Recovery Office, which is the office who is overseeing all of this for the state, is that this is not an eligible use of the funds. We included that email in your things from Nate, I can't pronounce his last name, Halupka, who is the person who's been working with us since June when these funds were first awarded. It's not a question of whether the Board of Elections has the authority to work within these funds. It's whether or not they meet the federal guidelines. The session law where these funds were awarded states that they have to meet the requirements and limitations set forth in the Federal CARES Act. When we reached out to the North Carolina Pandemic Recovery Office yesterday, their response was that this does not meet those federal guidelines for CARES Act funds. We had also already reached out to the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. They do not see that it meets those guidelines either. And as I read Ms. Bell's email, under the requirements that she states, we do not believe it meets those guidelines either, and our concern would be that because these funds can be audited up to 3 years after the fact, and they've told us there'll be 100% audit on every expense in these funds, that when this is audited, it will not be seen as an eligible expense.
Chairman, I guess my hang-up is the definition of hazardous pay. I keep reading it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and I just sort of don't get it, I guess. When we're talking about our deputies and other departments and whatever in the county government, just what does that mean? You know, I bet I read this 50 times and I can't. I really don't know what hazardous pay under these circumstances, what it is.
Yeah, I think our staff has fought that for months, trying to, to get the federal folks to say exactly, what is hazardous. I know that they have been back and forth asking them, well, what about this? What about this? And the answer's been, well, no, this is, yes, this isn't. So, Mr. Carter, you've been lit up for a long time.
Yeah, yes, I'm lit up. I appreciate the fact that other county commissions have voted on some things. I do appreciate that, and they're allowed to do whatever they want to. I don't know that we have the authority to be sitting here voting on this to begin with. I don't know why we're here even, in my mind, discussing why we have to be an approving authority. It looks like it should be the State Board of Elections. It looks like it should be the office that is over the COVID monies. We've been a pass-through for COVID monies that have been approved by somebody else. We've not voted on a thing for anybody, any monies, and there's been a lot of it in the millions of dollars that have passed through this county that we've not voted on. So I have a real, there's no clarity in my mind as to why we're sitting up here trying to discuss that you had a meeting and then all of these, like I say, I appreciate the fact that other commissions have done what you said they did. That's fine. But for Burke County, I want to make sure that we're doing it correctly, and all the documentation that is in front of us right now says that we're not. And when JR peruses, and I've sat here and read what this attorney sent, and she's highlighted some things in here that makes me think that she's flip-flopping, kind of, sort of, when I read some of these things. One in particular where it says, county boards of elections are not integrated subcomponents of the counties. She's going to have to explain to me what she's trying to tell me there, so hopefully JR can come back and do that. And she also says that she believes the State Board of Elections' dominion over the local board's conduct weighs more heavily than their reliance on the counties for funding. So that could be interpreted a couple different ways. So we got attorneys talking now. I hope you appreciate the fact that we're not trying to keep you from getting any kinds of monies. I just want to make sure that it passes through the correct way so we don't come back. Margaret has stayed on top of this. I don't want to come back and the federal government said, you should not have given them that money. That's the part you're trying to get. That's all we're trying to do is make sure that they don't come back and say we shouldn't have done what we did. And I'm still concerned that we're here doing something that maybe is not in our purview. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, and, following along those lines as well, it's one thing for different attorneys to have different interpretations. And, we've heard different interpretations in the room. The majority saying that this is not covered from what I've read and what I've seen. And so, I have to have certainty. I think y'all did a fantastic job. It wouldn't possibly, we're the ones liable for the funds. And if there's a pretty good chance, which it sounds like when we do get audited and they find that line item, we're going to have to pay the piper. And so, I'm not comfortable with that at this point. I mean, if it was not for that and we were given enough time to discuss and research and get the facts, but we don't have them. We're getting different information, and I never make decisions when it's a 50-50, because this is just maybe not even a 50-50, it's probably 10-90 that it's, that it's not even going to be eligible. If it wasn't for that, if I had 100% certainty, I wouldn't have a problem with it, but we just don't have it.
Mr. Moy, or Vice Chairman Moy, it appears to me that what we have now is two attorneys that need to get together. This is above my head, certainly, and I think most everybody in this room. So, our attorney at the State Board has sent this. JR can read it and study it and talk to you guys and give his findings back to Kelly Torno. And then let her take it. We're out of it. We don't understand half of what this says, from a legal standpoint, because we're not attorneys. So I think we should leave it to the attorneys and then make the decision from there. Is that?
Any other comment, JR?
Like I say, I can't give you an opinion tonight based on what Ms. Carno has sent me. If you all want to put this off until another week, or I noticed we're recessing rather than adjourning, I can certainly share my opinion with you.
All right, thank you, JR. Any other discussion on this matter? All right, hearing none other discussion at this time, I will entertain a motion of some kind on this matter.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to postpone this matter until J.R. Simpson has time to review the documentation from the attorney from the State Board of Elections, and that he can provide us further guidance of how this money can pass through. I just really don't think it will determine whether it actually needs to come to this board or whether Margaret can do a pass-through.
All right, gentlemen, you've heard a motion that we delay action on this. That may precipitate a special call meeting. Madam Clerk, how could that work? Could it work between now and the needed time? Is that possible?
I can make it work.
Okay. Well, we will not act then. We've got a motion. All in favor of not acting and waiting to hear from JR, and if we see that this might be doable with CARES money and no county funds would be involved, then we'll consider a special call meeting or a recessed meeting to hear this matter further. All in favor signify by the uplifted hand. That's 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Kirksey. Thank you, Debbie. Sorry for all the round and round, but
It is what it is.
We've dealt with this all through the pandemic, and we just want to be sure we're on the up and up.
I understand that perfectly.
Thank you.
Y'all have a Merry Christmas.
And you too. Okay, let's see. We're up to item 11, reports and comments. So at this time, I will open the floor for reports and comments, and we'll start. Margaret? What about Margaret? You got any comments for us tonight?
No, sir, we have been hard at work on CARES Act this month. Not the last 2 days, this one, but certainly we are tying up our projects. The deadline is staring us in the face, and we're trying our best to get everything taken care of, so there is no chance of county dollars coming into play. We hope and anticipate at this time that all projects will be completed, and we'll have a full report for you on everything as we're trying to add and subtract right here at the end to make sure the funds are all utilized in the best method possible. But thank you, and Merry Christmas to each and every one of you.
All right. Thank you, Margaret, and I express on behalf of the board our appreciation for the extra work that has come along your way through the pandemic as well, in your department and everybody for that matter. Thank you. JR?
Thank you, gentlemen. Since the last meeting of commissioners on November 17th, I have drafted or amended 3 contracts for general services, for BDI, and for community development. I have reviewed 5 contracts on behalf of general services, the Burke County Jail, Animal Services, DSS, and the Health Department. I've spent considerable time working with Alan Wood of BDI on Project Glide, which we hope to have before the commissioners in January. I've prepared for and attended a hearing of the Burke County Board of Adjustment as counsel for that board. I was prepared for and was set to attend a hearing of the Burke County Board of Elections as counsel for that board before the hearing was canceled by a candidate's concurrence. Spent time working with Shane Prisby this month on community development concerning an easement agreement for a portion of the Fauna Flora Trail. I'm currently working with Brian Neef of Margaret's office for contracts on the 9/11 Center and on the Burke County Jail. Thank you.
Thank you, JR. Madam Clerk?
Just wanted to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Same as the clerk, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Abel? Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Yes, sir. I would like to add to the reports that you already have that I did attend the Air and Water Quality Conference on 12/11. They had 4 sessions, and I was able to get to 3 of the 4. And I, too, would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and I'll kind of wish and make the claim that Buck Owens said in one of his songs, he hopes you get one of everything you want for Christmas.
All right. That sounds good. Thank you. Mr. Carter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I have tonight is, before I wish everybody a Merry Christmas, is remember Rebecca McLeod, our Health Department Director. Her mother has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. They brought her home today for hospice to treat her until the end. So Rebecca and her sisters, please keep those folks in your prayers. Right, it's hard right here in the holiday season to lose someone, especially your mom. So again, gentlemen, thank you so much, and ladies, Merry Christmas, and God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chair?
I say the same thing. I'll pair the same thing. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and please stay safe out there. Please do. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'll echo the Christmas wishes to everyone and to our citizens as well. Our room has vacated tonight, so hopefully we still have some folks maybe on YouTube or some watching some other method. And I would ask and remind everyone as we move into the holidays to please mind your W's. That's wear your mask, wash your hands, and wait 6 feet away. It's important to try to continue to minimize our risks to the pandemic. And so with that, I wish all a Merry Christmas as well. So this brings us to item number 12, vacancy announcements. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the boards. We have the following opportunities for citizens to be involved in county boards and committees: the Adult Care and Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee, Council on Aging, Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, City of Morganton Planning Board and Board of Adjustment for the ETJ, Burke Senior Center Advisory Council, the Recreation Commission, and the Blue Ridge Community Action Board of Directors.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, tonight we have no need for a closed session, and so with that, I will entertain a motion to recess to our January 5th scheduled meeting at 4 p.m. And we're going to do that by Zoom, okay? Now, remember, our pre-agenda meeting on January 5th will be at 3, and that will be also a Zoom meeting. So please keep that in mind. I would also remind folks that county offices will be closed for the holidays on December 24th, 25th, and 28th, and January the 1st. And then I've just reminded you of our pre-agenda meeting and the special meeting or recessed meeting on January the 5th. Like us on Facebook. If you're a Facebook fan, please spay and neuter your pets. Help keep Burke County clean by picking up trash, and there's plenty of that around, so we would certainly ask your help in keeping our county clean and pretty and nice. All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. That was a motion to recess, Madam Clerk, to January 5th.